As I understand it, from a practical standpoint, the problem isn't that torture doesn't work. It's that it works too well. Pain will make people talk. There are no two ways about that. Sometimes it'll make them tell things that aren't true. They'll say anything they possibly can say that might make the pain go away, and that's not very helpful. But a skilled torturer, so I am told, will get results. This is part of why Alan Dershowitz argues that in the case of a terrorist who has information about how a nuclear device can be prevented from exploding, killing millions of innocent people, should be tortured. Now, Dershowitz does want to say that such torture should be regulated. He says you're going to need to torture. Torture is simply the only way to get some information. That information will prevent suffering and make more people happy. But we don't want to just torture for torture's sake. If we're being good utilitarians, we must remember that we're supposed to create the most happiness possible. Torturing somebody when we don't need to doesn't make the most people happy possible. Possibly we could have gotten the information without torture, so torturing is immoral under the utilitarian account, no matter how many people's lives are saved, because we could have done it without the torture. But sometimes it has been suggested this is just not going to be true. There's going to be a short period of time. The ticking bomb is going to go off. What shall we do? We'll torture the person who knows the information to get it. All that we should do, says Dershowitz, is be sure torture is necessary, and in order to make sure that torture is actually necessary, we will have some kind of adjudication panel that issues torture warrants. In a reminder that differing moral theories often arrive at differing moral conclusions, Jessica Wolfendale argues that torture treats the tortured person as well as the torturer, both as means and not ends in themselves. The tortured person, it's obvious. We're telling them we don't care about you at all. All we want is the information you have. We're going to torture you as a means to get what we want. We don't care about you as long as we get what we want. We all often reflect upon how the torturer is also being used as a means. The torturer is being used as a tool to get information. There's no two ways about it that this torturing activity will result in instrumentalizing the humanity of the torturer. Well, look at it this way, and Wolfendale makes this point, I think, clearly. In order to be a good torturer, you must create an ultimate amount of pain while not killing the person you're torturing. After all, their death is a failure just as much as if you'd never tortured them at all. The training necessary to be able to do that will gradually desensitize the torturer, making them into less of a person than they were before. Kant uses much the same argument to argue for preventing animal cruelty, that if we become used to being cruel to animals, we will become used to being cruel to everyone around us. If we become used to causing people pain, and we have to, that's our job, then we will gradually dehumanize ourselves. Think of ourselves more and more as someone who is a tool of the state, of the community, in order to arrive at being a good torturer. So as I say, here's a Kantian argument that says torturing is wrong not simply because of what it does to the tortured person, but also what it does to the torturer. And we have a utilitarian argument on the other hand that says, no, 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 torture, so long as it's the only means of getting the information, is perfectly okay. We wind up creating more happiness than unhappiness. You want to be consistent in your moral principle. You don't want to say, oh, I'm going to be a utilitarian on torture, but I'm going to be a natural law theorist on abortion. Or I'm going to be a Kantian when it comes to talking to the law or to the public, but I'm going to be utilitarian about dealing with telling the truth to family or friends. One moral principle, or you're not moral at all. Just that simple. Changing moral principles is the same as having no moral principle. The guy who calls balls and strikes has to call them the same for everybody. You have to do that too. Otherwise, you're not being consistent, and therefore you're not being moral, according to the principles we began this game with. If you want to play a new game, fine, but you're going to have to construct it. Present-day morality and present-day value theory doesn't permit it. It's a lot to think about, I know, and you should be talking about it. Keep on talking philosophy.